Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Austrian artists welcome Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Vienna with rendition of Vande Mataram. Prime Minister Modi is the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Austria in almost 40 years. Will hold delegation-level talks with Chancellor Karl Nehammer. US President Joe Biden promises air defense system for Ukraine as he opens NATO summit in Washington. NATO chief Stoltenberg says outcome of Ukraine conflict will shape global security for decades to come.
But make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
Texas faces double whammy as heatwave adds to the woes after tropical storm Beryl forced power outages. President Joe Biden issues federal emergency disaster declaration. 7 people killed in the storm so far. Wonder kid Yamal scripts history as Spain edges France 2-1 to reach Euro 2024 final. Board of Control for Cricket in India appoints Gautam Gambhir as the new head coach. Gambhir to take over from Sri Lanka tour. After concluding a fruitful visit to Russia, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Austria's capital, Vienna. Prime Minister Modi was received at the airport by Austria's Minister for Foreign Affairs. Now, this is the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister in Austria in the last 40 years. Austria is India's steadfast and reliable partner, and both countries share ideals of democracy and pluralism. Upon arrival at the hotel in Vienna, Prime Minister Modi was greeted by members of the Indian diaspora. Children enthusiastically presented their artworks to him, showcasing their excitement and admiration. Additionally, members of the Indian community gathered around him, waving Indian flags and chanting "Modi, Modi" as they greeted him. This enthusiastic welcome highlighted the strong support and connection felt by the Indian community in Vienna towards the Prime Minister during his visit. Prime Minister was greeted by Austrian artists singing Vande Mataram. Prime Minister Modi's 2-day visit to Austria is the first by an Indian Prime Minister in over 4 decades.
Such a big honored person, so that we can play in front of them is just fantastic. Oh, he looked at us with such big eyes, and I also saw a little smile on his face, and that was really a beautiful moment for us. He was really friendly. He came to us like a friend, actually. He entered the group. We did a photo with him. He signatured our notes, so he was a really friendly person. Yeah.
It was a phenomenal experience. I really enjoyed it. It's a big honor for me. It's a huge honor. I did prepare quite a lot. With the orchestra, we we prepared for a few days, but I also at home I had to really give my best because this is a huge opportunity for Austria, for us, for our orchestra. It was an amazing experience. You can really see that he cares for the people, and I really noticed that feeling. I felt warm next to him, with him.
DD India's Gautam Roy interacted with a girl kid who came to welcome Prime Minister Modi. The Prime Minister asked her name, got it noted down and said that he'll write to her. Let's listen in.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just met a small contingent of the Indian diaspora when he arrived, a good mix of young and old and women and men. And these children also got to speak to him. You presented something to Prime Minister Modi today. What's your name, Rita? Vinci, what did you give to the PM?
A poster.
And what did it say?
Prime Minister won 3 times a prize.
Prime Minister was so courteous. So he saw the poster, he saw the painting, appreciated it, and then he turned it around and he asked, where's the name of the child? And then he said, please give me the name of the child, and I want to write a letter to the child appreciating the efforts that she put in to make this painting. So it was really very, very, very humbling, and we really liked the Prime Minister's gesture.
Okay, wonderful. So that's what this visit would now mean to a future generation of the Indian diaspora here in Austria as well. That's the kind of imprint that perhaps this visit will leave here for all the Austrian people as well. This is Gautam Roy in Vienna, Austria for DD India.
In an important milestone in the India-Austria partnership, the Indian Prime Minister was hosted by Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer for a private engagement on Tuesday. Now, this was the first meeting between the two leaders. The Austrian Chancellor posted a photo of him and Prime Minister Modi on the social media platform X and wrote, "It's an honor to welcome Prime Minister Modi to Austria. Austria and India are friends and partners." He also further wrote that he looks forward to political and economic discussions with the two nations, between the two nations during Prime Minister's visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi thanked the Austrian Chancellor for the warm welcome and said he looks forward to the discussions as well. Prime Minister said, I quote him, "Our nations will continue working together for further global good." And I unquote him. And now we take a quick look at Prime Minister Modi's itinerary in Vienna. DD India's Gautam Roy gets us more.
An Indian Prime Minister landing on Austrian soil after over 40 years, when the two nations are also marking 75 years of their friendship.
The visit is going to give great dynamism to this partnership. It's going to give the high-level political visibility that this relationship requires, and it's a relationship that has been performing reasonably well. And with this visit, we expect it to gain dynamism and content.
The substantial part of Prime Minister Modi's Austria visit will be unfolding on Wednesday, where he'll not only call on Austria's President Alexander Van der Bellen at the Hofburg Palace, but also hold delegation-level talks with his Austrian counterpart, Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer, at the Federal Chancellery after receiving a ceremonial reception. The day will also see the Prime Minister meeting key Austrian influencers. But another highlight for Wednesday will be the maiden Austria-India CEOs meeting, where an effort will be made to give further impetus to the business ties between the two nations, including their respective startup ecosystems.
Indian companies that are operating in Austria, and there are several Austrian companies operating in India. And as part of the program, there will be an interaction with Indian and Austrian CEOs to try and see how we can move this partnership forward, especially in niche technologies, clean technologies, and also in terms of bringing some of our startups together. There is a good groundwork has already been laid, and what we need is a quantum leap in this partnership, and this is what I think this visit will succeed in doing.
Vienna is also the city of Western classical music, which was the home to great composers such as Mozart and Beethoven, among others. And he also got a melodic reception from Vienna University Philharmonic, whose director is also an Indian diaspora member. Clearly, there are multiple elements to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Austria visit, which have the potential of taking its ties with India to greater heights in several aspects of the relationship.
In just the last few months, India and Austria have added new elements to their already extensive relations, such as a comprehensive migration and mobility agreement, as well as an India-Austria startup bridge. But there are many more areas that are still left to be fully explored, be it semiconductors or AI, advanced telecommunications, aerospace, and much progress can be expected to be made in this historic Austria visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With camera person Rakesh Singh, Gautam Roy, Vienna, Austria, DD India.
During Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Austria visit, the two nations are also looking to deepen their cooperation in the tech and startup sectors. DD India's Gautam Roy has spoken with those involved in this effort on both the sides, of which the recently put into action India-Austria Startup Bridge is a major initiative. Let's listen in.
Technology is an area where India and Austria can really take their cooperation really far, and the India-Austria Startup Bridge is one new initiative that is taking place. We're trying to find out more about it. We have with us Kambis Kohonsa Vayaga with us. He's the representative as far as startups is concerned for the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. Thank you for speaking to DD India. Kambis, what can you tell us about this initiative, and to what extent are there plans to take it forward as well, because right now it's in a very nascent stage?
Yeah, great to be here. The initiative has different aspects to it. So several months ago, we had our biggest tech festival here in Austria, the Vienna Up, and we had a huge Indian delegation, the biggest of all the international countries. And the goal was to bring Indian startups to Austria, but also vice versa, bring Austrian startups to India. Apart from that, we have a strong focus on universities. So we want to share research and development, focus on spin-offs in Austria and India as well. And then again, having this matchmaking between market access, know-how, talent and capital.
Wonderful. We have Shankar as well with us. Shankar Reddy is a founding member of Indian Professional Networks Association in Vienna in Austria. Shankar, what can you tell us about the scope of the kind of collaboration that India and Austria can have in the field of technology and, of course, the startup ecosystems?
India and Austria are growing more and more in terms of diversification, and very recent times we have seen the mobility agreement signed between India and Austria, wherein which Austria is purely looking and focusing for the highly skilled employees to be placed in Austrian startups and Austrian companies, wherein which Austrian authorities and Austria as a whole is also looking for the Indian skill and Indian talent to flourish this market.
So it seems to be all about opening up new avenues for collaboration to ensure that not only the fact that there is market access which is being sought in a cross manner, but also there are openings and there are future prospects for professionals as well in both the countries. With camera person Rakesh Kumar, Gautam Roy in Vienna, Austria, DD India.
All right, Gautam Roy joins us from Vienna to get us more. Gautam, now we saw how the Prime Minister got an overwhelming reception last night when he arrived in Austria for this landmark visit. Let us get more from you as to what does the day hold for him today and also the advancement of the India-Austria relations.
Yes, well, day 2 of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Austria, and remember that it's a visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Austria after over 40 long years in the 75th year of their relationship. This is when the substantial part of his visit will really be unfolding, starting at 9:55 a.m. here in Vienna, which is 3.5 hours behind Delhi or India, as we have one time for the entire large nation that we have. But this will see the Prime Minister reach the Federal Chancellery, where he will be meeting his Austrian counterpart, the Chancellor Karl Nehammer, and holding talks with him, as well as along with the entire delegation that has come along with the Prime Minister. It will see an event take place also, which will be happening for the first time, which is the India-Austria CEOs meeting, where representatives of top companies from India, including 5 startups, 2 of them from aerospace, and also high-tech companies, representatives from Austria, and that will be, the number is 28 for the Austrian side, and that number has been swelling through the days as well. This is the first time that such a meeting will take place, and a lot of progress is expected where India-Austria business and economy ties are concerned out of this meeting as well. This will be taking place. The day will also see the Prime Minister calling on the President of Austria, Van der Bellen, and also at the same time, the Prime Minister got a glimpse of the kind of enthusiasm that the Indian diaspora in Austria has for him when he arrived in this country in Vienna last night. And this will be magnified even further because there's a grand event that's planned through the day at a location in Vienna, Sofin Saleh, where he will be addressing a select gathering of the Indian diaspora there as well, who've been invited by the Indian Embassy to listen to the Prime Minister, interact with him, and also share their experiences of being in Austria. Some of them have been here for as many as 50 years, and what they think is needed further to bring the two societies closer and mutually progress further.
All right, Gautam, thank you for joining in with those details. So that was our correspondent Gautam Roy joining us from Vienna, spelling out more on Prime Minister's visit. Up next for a short break, but after the break, fresh encounter underway in Doda district of Jammu and Kashmir. NIA, Special Forces roped in for search operation. People in Assam finally heave a sigh of relief as the flood situation improves in the state with decline in the rainfall. Bollywood blockbusters enthrall cine lovers in Germany at the Indo-German Film Week.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get two more updates. A fresh encounter broke out between security forces and terrorists in the higher reaches of Doda district of Jammu and Kashmir on Tuesday. Authorities have roped in the National Investigation Agency, deployed special forces and widened their search to cover vast areas in Udhampur and Kathua districts. The forces are searching for the perpetrators of the deadly attack on the army patrol in Kathua district, in which 5 soldiers were martyred. DD India correspondent Shabir Dar joins us with more from Srinagar. Shabir, get us more on the encounter. We tell our viewers that the encounter is under progress.
Yes, the operations are going on, very smoothly in both the forest areas in Kushwa and, Raju in Doda. Yesterday evening, we saw that the army zeroed in on the terrorists in the Doda forests where the initial exchange of fire happened between the two sides. And after that, massive service operations have been launched to nab these terrorists who are holed up in the forest areas. We know that in Kushwa, few days back, the terrorists, attacked the army convoy in which 5 brave soldiers were martyred. And after that, the army, police and security forces have launched massive operations in Kushwa and in nearby Doda forests, where they are believed that the terrorists, operated and supported by the Pakistan, and these are holding up in these forests to ensure that the peaceful Jammu region, where the militancy was almost, cleared in recent past, the Pakistan is trying to actually, create trouble in the peaceful Jammu region. That is why we have seen in past few months the spurt in terrorist incidents in Jammu region, where where many of our brave soldiers have martyred. So now the focus is on to actually nab the terrorists, go to their hideouts and follow them out and kill them. That is how the operation is going on right now in these forest areas. We know that NIA has been roped in, elite commandos, and the forces of J&K police and army are in cohort, are in coordination to ensure that no nefarious or terrorist organizations are given any chance to raise their head in Jammu region.
All right, Shabir, also, do we know anything about how many terrorists are involved? Do we know the number of the terrorists involved? And also, we tell our viewers that the encounter is taking place in Doda district and in Kathua. Let us get more from you on the topographical details. Are the terrorists there in the residential areas or in the forested areas? Let us get more details from you on this encounter.
This forest, it is a dense forest, and the topography is a challenge in those areas because that those forests are in one side connected with the POK and others with the Himachal. These are dense ridges and forests in that area, and terrorists are taking advantage of those topographical advantages to ensure that they hit and then run back. So now what is the strategy is that the forces are increasing their footprint in the forest areas to ensure that no space is left for terrorists to flee. And we know in the Pushpa encounter, it is believed that 3 tourists who had come from either from Pakistan or was already infiltrated in the area were supported by few guides who made them and they had the see of that that area before the attack. So it is believed that 2 to 3 terrorists are involved in the Pushpa attack, and in Doda, where the encounter was started yesterday, is still going on. The initial fire yesterday happened between the 2 sides, and in the night the operation was stopped. But again in the morning, the search operation continued, and it is believed that 3-4 terrorists might be hiding in those forests. And in a span of time that when we be hearing that the security forces will have a great success in this encounter too.
All right, Shabir, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. And now we'll turn focus to the northeastern state of Assam, where the flood situation has improved as intensity of rains decreased in the past few days. 7 persons lost their lives on Tuesday, taking the death toll up to 79 this year. Brahmaputra in some major areas and 5 other rivers are flowing above danger mark. Over 2,700 villages under 90 revenue circles in 26 districts are still reeling under flood waters, affecting over 17.17 lakh people. DD India's correspondent Subina Roy joins us with more from Dibrugarh. Subina, we tell our viewers that the situation has somewhat eased in Assam. There is a decline in the rainfall, but you also get us more on, what are the efforts that are being made by the administration there to bring back life to normalcy? And also when we talk of the affected regions, what has been the extent of the damage? Let us get more from you on this.
Yes, good morning, Preeti. The situation here in Assam had improved since yesterday, since the intensity of rainfall had decreased and the weather conditions had improved. However, since last night and today morning, again the rain has started, and the IMD has issued orange alert for Arunachal Pradesh, and it has issued orange alert for Assam and Arunachal Pradesh for tomorrow, which means that rains are likely to occur again. Coming to your next question, talking about the administrative efforts, Preeti, the total population now has come down to 7.7 lakhs since the intensity of rainfall has decreased. And the NDRF, SDRF, local authorities, state government have been continuously working round the clock to take out people from flood-affected areas to safer areas and relief camps. Every day, more than 500 relief camps are set up. Like as per the latest bulletin, 500 yesterday, 500 relief camps were set up. Relief camps which were set up, 240 relief camps. Then relief distribution centers were 267. 48,000 inmates are living in these relief camps, and the government authorities are providing them with daily food items, the flood medical assistance, whatever is required for their living. So everything is being provided by the district administration. And Assam CM is also continuously visiting the flood-affected districts. Like recently, he had visited the Tenghakat area of Dibrugarh district, where there were 4 embankment breaches. And yesterday, the making maintenance work had started the embankment, and it is expected to be completed by the next 20 days. So, seeing the weather conditions, the district administration in Dibrugarh has also opened the schools. The schools and other private institutions are likely to open from today, Preeti.
All right, Subina, thank you for joining in with those details from Dibrugarh. And now we turn focus to other updates. Nikola Tesla was undoubtedly one of the most prolific inventors of his time. A mastermind inventor who shaped some groundbreaking inventions. He was credited with close to 300 patents for his innovations in history. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya gets us more.
Nikola Tesla was born on 10th of July 1856 in Croatia, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His father was a priest in the Serbian Orthodox Church and his mother managed the family's farm. In 1863, a tragic accident claimed the life of Tesla's brother Daniel. The shock of this loss deeply affected the 7-year-old Nicola. Tesla's journey was filled with challenges. After an unsuccessful attempt to start his own Tesla Electric Light Company, he found backers to support his groundbreaking research into alternating current or AC. In 1887 and 1888, Tesla was granted over 30 patents for his inventions. His work caught the eye of George Westinghouse, a key figure in the battle of the currents against Thomas Edison. Westinghouse hired Tesla, licensed his AC motor patents, and provided him with a lab. Tesla continued to innovate in 1890s, creating electric oscillators, meters, improved lights, and high-voltage transformer known as Tesla coil. He experimented with X-rays, demonstrated radio communication before Marconi, and piloted a radio control boat at the Madison Square Garden. Together with Westinghouse, Tesla illuminated the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago and helped install AC generators at the Niagara Falls, establishing the first modern power station. Perhaps the most well-known symbol of Tesla's work is the Tesla coil. It is a transformer that produces high voltage, low current, high frequency alternating current electricity. In 1895, a fire destroyed Tesla's New York lab, erasing years of work. On this day, we honor Nikola Tesla, a visionary whose innovations continue to power the world. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
Hundreds of moviegoers have been packing theatres in Germany to enjoy a little taste of India. The annual Indo-German Film Week showcasing the best of Bollywood on the silver screen, with many in the Indian diaspora taking along German friends to introduce them to the magic of Indian cinema. From Berlin, Trent Murray has this report.
In the Babylon Cinema Berlin, a big burst of Bollywood. This is the annual Indo-German Film Week, a celebration of Indian cinema and culture. For Indians living in Germany, the festival gives a chance to showcase what makes Bollywood special to their European friends.
It's more about the storytelling, it's more about the happiness and, the unity in culture. Like, we are, different part of India has so much in the cultural difference, but still, it's still very unique, and how we all are connected despite of different languages, and we have different folk style. So they come to know that it's not just the sari, which is a dressing style, or not just, the Punjabi dance, but there are so many forms of dances.
It's about their music, it's about their songs, it's about their costume. It's about their emotions, because India is a sentimental country. It's a little emotional, and their emotions are all about love, care, affection. So that's my kind of vision, my kind of perspective for it. So yeah, that's what I tell them. It's a mixture of life.
Well, India has well and truly established itself as one of the powerhouses of global cinema, producing well over 1,500 feature films every year. Increasingly, Bollywood's success on the silver screen is coming from a surging interest amongst international audiences.
This is now the 12th year in a row the Film Week has been held. Festival organiser Stephen Ottenbruch says looking beyond the big-name titles is what keeps crowds coming back.
We now try to concentrate on alternative films like premieres, which are from artists and regional films from Marathi cinema, from Gujarati cinema, from Malayalam cinema. And that's how we always create the mix for the festival.
Over 10 days, crowds across the capital can immerse themselves in the magic of India, with more than 30 films being shown on the big screen. enjoying the sights and sounds of the subcontinent right here in the heart of Germany's biggest city. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Many thanks to Pooja Rangararan.
All right, with that, we're heading for a short break. You're watching DD India News Hour, but after the break, amid chaos over Biden's presidential bid, Trump expected to unite the party at the Republican National Convention next week. Heat stroke-related medical cases jump fourfold as temperatures in Japan soar to 40 degrees. Visitors can now have a brief taste of royalty as visitors to Buckingham Palace can pay to stand behind the famous balcony for the first time on which the British royal family often appears.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's take a quick relook at the top stories once again. Austrian artists welcome Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Vienna with rendition of Vande Mataram. Prime Minister Modi is the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Austria in almost 40 years. Will hold delegation-level talks with Chancellor Karl Nehammer. US President Joe Biden promises air defense system for Ukraine as he opens NATO summit in Washington. NATO chief Stoltenberg says outcome of Ukraine conflict will shape global security for decades to come. Texas faces double whammy as heat wave adds to the woes after tropical storm Beryl forces power outages. President Joe Biden issues federal emergency disaster declaration. 7 people killed in the storm so far. Wonder kid Yamal scripts history as Spain edges France 2-1 to reach Euro 2024 final. BCCI appoints Gautam Gambhir as the new head coach. Gambhir to take over from Sri Lanka tour. World leaders have gathered in Washington for the NATO summit as the organization celebrates its 75th anniversary. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg urged leaders of the Transatlantic Security Alliance to maintain support for Ukraine in its war against Russia's invasion, declaring that the outcome of the conflict would shape global security for decades. The centerpiece of the NATO summit was set to be new commitments of military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, as well as a bridge for that war-torn country to join the 32-member alliance. The US and its allies will deliver 5 additional air defense systems to Kyiv, affirming their full support for Ukraine. The announcement from the US President Joe Biden while awarding NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg with the US's highest honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Nearly 24 allied partners have signed the bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, and more countries will follow. Today, I'm announcing the historic donation of air defense equipment for Ukraine. The United States, Germany, the Netherlands, Romania, and Italy will provide Ukraine with the equipment for 5 additional strategic air defense systems. And in the coming months, the United States and our partners intend to provide Ukraine with dozens of additional tactical air defense systems.
NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg announced to have placed an order for Stinger anti-aircraft missiles worth almost $700 million in the name of several member states on Tuesday. Stoltenberg was addressing a gathering of defense industry leaders on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Washington. The last contract for Stinger missiles was awarded in May 2022 when the US Army contracted $625 million worth of the anti-aircraft missiles to replenish stocks sent to Kyiv, as it is in hot demand in Ukraine, where they have used it in their fight against Russia. The NATO order for Stingers will keep the production line running through 2029.
The NSPA, the Support and Procurement Agency, agreed contracts worth over $11 billion for ammunition and capabilities. And just today, the NSPA signed new multinational contracts for Stinger missiles worth almost $700 million.
The grinding Ukraine-Russia conflict is going to dominate private conversations between the leaders of the 32 NATO member countries. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg appeared with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and announced that there will be some decisions on Ukraine during the summit. Members have a full agenda focused on military and financial aid for Ukraine and offering some pathway towards eventful NATO membership for Kyiv.
We have NATO coming together for its 75th anniversary here in Washington. Of course, celebrating those 75 years, but more important, focused on today and the following days and making sure that our alliance continues to do what it's done so successfully for 75 years, which is to ensure the defense of its members. Thanks to the Secretary General and his leadership, we have an alliance that is stronger, that is larger, and that is more fit for purpose than it's been, and ready to take on the challenges of this moment.
It will be a summit where we celebrate the most successful alliance in history, but we're also going to make important decisions for the future on deterrence and defense, on Ukraine, on partnerships in the Asia-Pacific. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the leadership of the United States, of President Biden, of you, to ensure that we have now 32 allies agreeing on all these important decisions we will take during the summit here in Washington. We will make decisions on Ukraine, and I think what we have seen over the last days demonstrates the need to step up our support for Ukraine.
Meanwhile, bilateral meeting between US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba led to the renewed support for Ukraine. Both the leaders met at the State Department during the three-day NATO summit in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is, as always, a great pleasure to have my colleague, my friend Dmytro Kuleba here as we start the NATO summit, a summit that will further strengthen Ukraine's ties to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and its path to membership. We've done a lot of work in recent weeks and recent months on that, and I think you'll see a very strong package emerge from this summit for Ukraine. More broadly, we've been working closely together to make sure that as things move forward, Ukraine has what it needs to stand strongly on its own feet, militarily, economically, democratically. And we're on a very good pathway to do just that.
We seem to be set before a very, very important gathering of leaders. Thank you for working diligently on covering and reaching some of very important agreements on air defense and for the assistance that NATO will be providing to Ukraine. This is all essential. And I'm looking forward to continuing our partnership and friendship and cooperation.
It is the 75th anniversary of the alliance, with support for Ukraine topping the agenda, but the president is in fact fighting for political survival after a poor debate performance. Biden is struggling to convince Democrats that he is still mentally fit to run for re-election. Kate Fisher gets us more from Washington.
As Joe Biden welcomed delegates to the summit in Washington, D.C., much of the focus was actually on him. At aged 81, he's older than the NATO alliance, an alliance that he hailed, and he pledged that Ukraine can and will stop Russia. The speech was forceful and clear, and so any of his critics expecting to see a stumble like those that he had during the presidential debate would have been disappointed. But this wasn't evidence that he can handle a high-pressure situation. This was scripted, and he read off the teleprompter throughout. He is hoping that this NATO summit will be a chance for him to turn the page on a global stage to show not just the American people but the world that he is capable of doing this job and being re-elected to do the job. But it is distracting from the work that NATO actually wants to do and what the leaders are here in Washington, D.C. to achieve. Now, domestically, Joe Biden has survived so far. A handful of Democratic lawmakers have come out publicly and said that they think he needs to stand aside and pull out of the presidential race. But on Tuesday, there were closed-door meetings of House and Senate Democrats where this topic was discussed. And when they finished, nobody left those meetings. No leadership in the House or the Senate left those meetings calling for him to go. They were all backing Joe Biden. Perhaps the biggest test this week, then, that he's going to face, having survived those meetings, is on Thursday at the NATO summit, when he will be giving an unscripted press conference, which will be the first time that reporters have a chance to ask him questions face to face since that disastrous debate. In Washington, Kate Fisher reporting for DD India.
Donald Trump is expected to try and move on from his recent convictions and unite the party at the Republican National Convention next week. Now, it comes at a time when Democrats are in chaos over whether or not President Biden is still fit to run as its party's nominee. Mitch McCann gets us more.
The US Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump has at least some immunity from prosecution for official acts taken while he was in office. And Judge Juan Merchan in the New York hush money case will have to decide whether that ruling impacts Trump's recent conviction for falsifying business records. Donald Trump was found guilty of 36 criminal counts at the end of May, becoming the first former US president to be convicted of a crime. It's possible he could be fined, sentenced to probation, or imprisoned for up to 4 years. The sentencing has now been moved back and won't take place until at least September, while the matter is being considered. That means it will no longer happen before next week's Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. It's there Trump's team will try and move on from the convictions and are likely to try and unite the party behind the presumptive candidate. And while Democrats are in chaos over the future of President Joe Biden and whether or not he should be replaced on the ticket, the Republican Party has released a schedule for a series of events taking place at the convention, including a number of receptions, lectures, and presentations. It's expected that Donald Trump will officially become the Republican nominee at the end of the convention. I'm Mitch McCann in New York, reporting for DD India.
The number of heat stroke patients have increased 4 times in Japan amid a sweltering heat wave. The mercury hit 40 degrees Celsius in some cities. Over the period, 9,105 people sought emergency hospital care for suspected heat stroke across the nation, more than twice the number during the same period last year. Patient numbers are likely to increase in the weeks to come, which is expected to put a strain on hospitals. A website has been launched as a preemptive measure to provide heat stroke patients intake estimates for hospitals. DD India's Chris Gilbert joins us from Tokyo. Chris, good morning. Now, get us the latest on the current situation in Japan, because we tell our viewers that the cases have swelled to 4 times, as have the temperatures there. What is the Met Department predicted there? What has been the reason behind this sudden spurt in temperature?
Yeah, well, the rainy season in Japan, the so-called rainy season, which usually happens through June into July, has become more and more distorted and less reliable over a period of years now. And if you have a look, there are reports going back at least a decade talking about unprecedented heat every year in June and July in Tokyo and throughout Japan. Now, if it's unprecedented every year, that effectively means it's getting hotter and hotter, earlier and earlier every year, and that is not taking any strain off the usual months of heat in August. And many people I've spoken to here in Japan say that this is completely weird, to be honest, that when they were children growing up in Tokyo, this kind of heat, 40 degrees, is usually the middle of August, not early July. It is catching many people by surprise, and today it's a little cooler. There is some cloud cover, and no doubt that comes to as some relief. As we saw, as you mentioned, 9,000 hospital call-outs last week, and the most important set of all amongst that is about 60% of that 9,000 are those aged 65 and older. As we know, Japan has one of the highest older population numbers of older people in the world for any country in the world. About a third of the population is over 65, and those are the most at vulnerable, the most at risk, and by far lead the stats of fatalities from heat stroke every year. So the government, as you mentioned, has taken some emergency precautions this year that it hasn't in the past. It's created cooling stations around the city. It's asked public facilities like libraries and community centres, town halls to have the aircon going to allow people to take some refuge from the heat. But many are concerned that if it is this hot now, entering the 40-degree range now, they're very concerned about what August is going to bring.
All right, Chris, that was about the efforts and the measures taken by the administration. But has the Met Department predicted relief in the near future? Till when do we expect this heat wave to continue, and do we expect it to end anytime soon?
Well, as I say, the predictability of the weather around the summertime, and especially in the crossover seasons from spring into summer, from summer into autumn, is becoming less and less reliable. But there are some measures being taken, or some calls being made, especially by the Doctors Association, which is calling on especially the older population of Japan to absolutely stay home unless it's necessary to head out. As I say, today is a bit cooler, so it has provided some relief. But even if people do stay home, there is concerns of fatalities or other heat stroke, related illnesses or events happening inside people's houses, because about 37% of last week's heat stroke incidents happened inside people's houses. About 80% of fatalities last July in 2023 happened inside people's houses. So even though there are calls for people to stay at home, there are also calls for people to absolutely use their air conditioning if they have it, because the cost of living has gone up in Japan over the last couple of years. People are becoming less reluctant to use these services, the energy, as it becomes more and more expensive. So there are emergency facilities being provided in public. As I mentioned, the cooling facilities, there are, the spread of information is increasing with the government launching websites and issuing alerts. But the vast majority of these incidents are happening inside people's homes, but even then, people are not necessarily safe.
All right, Chris, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. And from Japan weather, we'll turn focus to the US after Hurricane Beryl knocked out power to a large portion of Texas. Millions now face brutally hot conditions. Some 2.2 million homes and businesses were without electricity as temperatures were reaching above 100 degrees Fahrenheit midday on Tuesday. Several gas stations in Houston, the state's largest city and the fourth largest city in the country, were closed on Tuesday because they had no electricity, with residents forced to wait in long queues in the remaining open gas stations. Oil and gas companies are meanwhile making efforts to restart operations. US President Joe Biden on Tuesday declared Hurricane Beryl as a major disaster in Texas. Now, this means the state has been granted a federal emergency to speed the recovery efforts in 21 counties affected by the storm. With federal emergency in place, the state authorities would be able to mobilize federal resources to help with life-saving or life-sustaining activities. Tropical storm Beryl barreled into Texas on Monday, damaging NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans, and leaving over 2 million residents without power. We're heading for a short break. You're watching DD India News Hour, but after the break, in the US, inflation improves but still remains above Fed's 2% target. Spain's 16-year-old Lamine Yamal becomes youngest ever goal scorer at the European Championship. And in Wimbledon, Alcaraz fights back to reach Wimbledon semis. Sinner toppled by Medvedev. back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. In the United States, inflation remains above its Federal Reserve's 2% target, but has been improving in recent months and stressed on more data for the central bank interest rate cuts. In congressional testimony, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that inflation will return to the Fed's target, which is requirement for easing monetary policy. Powell's comments may firm expectations for changes to the policy statement to be released after the Fed's July 30th and 31st meeting that at least opened the door to a September rate cut, now given a roughly 70% probability by investors, barring a surprise jump in the coming inflation readings. Wall Street ended mixed on Tuesday after U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that more good economic data would strengthen the case for rate cuts. AI chip maker Nvidia climbed, setting off declines in other chip stocks. Automaker Tesla gained while Microsoft lost ground. The S&P 500 gained 4.13 points to end at 5,577 points, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.14% to 18,429. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.13% to 39,292. The National Samsung Electronics Union in South Korea declared another indefinite strike in a statement on Wednesday. The statement comes after a 3-day strike kicked off on Monday, demanding better pay. 30,000 members of the NSEU make up about 24% of the firm's South Korean workforce. The NSEU are also demanding an extra day of annual leave for the unionized workers. Now, the union flagged further action against the tech giant should demands not be met. Let's get to updates from the world of sports now. Spain struck twice in 5 minutes in a pulsating first half to secure a 2-1 win over France in the Euro semi-finals. The record-breaking goal from teenager Lamine Yamal and a Dani Olmo effort propelled them into the Euro 2024 final. The 16-year-old Yamal scored with sublime shot in the 21st minute to become the youngest scorer in a Euro or World Cup before Olmo added another in the 25th. They will now face the winners of Wednesday's match between England and the Netherlands in the final in Berlin on Sunday. On to tennis. Defending champion Carlos Alcaraz returned to the semis with an enthralling comeback on Tuesday. Having taken his Grand Slam tally to 3 at the French Open last month, Alcaraz pushed on in his quest to retain a major trophy for the first time and cement his big league status by rallying past American Tommy Paul. Jannik Sinner was heavily backed to succeed at the grass court Grand Slam, but the ailing 22-year-old came crashing down to earth against fifth seed Daniil Medvedev. Sinner put a brave fight after a timeout due to illness, but the Italian was unable to prevent a 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 2-6, 6-3 defeat. Jasmine Paolini cruised to a straight-set victory at Wimbledon to set up a meeting with Croatian Dona Vekic, who ended the extraordinary run of qualifier Lulu Sun. Former India opener Gautam Gambhir has been appointed head coach of the country's cricket team. He succeeded former teammate Rahul Dravid in what is considered one of the most challenging jobs in the game. Dravid, who ended his tenure guiding India to a T20 World Cup last month, opted not to apply for the job again, paving the way for Gambhir's elevation to the role. Gambhir was part of the India side that won the T20 World Cup in 2007 and 50 overs title 4 years later. India's legendary batter Sunil Gavaskar has turned 75 today. Former India captain and one of the greatest opening batters of all times, played 125 tests and 108 one-day internationals for India. He was the first batter to score over 10,000 runs in Test cricket with 34 centuries. In the shorter format, the master batter made 3,092 runs with unbeaten 103 as his highest. Born in Mumbai on 10th of July 1949, Gavaskar dominated first bowlers with his unbreachable defence and near-perfect batting technique. He played international cricket from 1971 to 1987. He was also part of the World Cup winning team in 1983. Now he works as a commentator. The Indian deaf cricket team was felicitated for the historic victory against England. India defeated England by 6 wickets in the 7th and final T20 to claim the series 5-2 in Leicester. Vice-captain Sai Akash and all-rounder E. Sudarshan outshine in fact, outshone the rivals with their splendid performance. Abhishek Singh was awarded man of the match in the final game, while Sai Akash bagged the player of the series honour. Visitors to Buckingham Palace in London this summer will get to stand behind the famous balcony for the first time, on which the British royal family often appears. Ticket holders will also be able to go inside the famous yellow drawing room, already sold out. It is expected to be accessible to the public again in 2025. All right, with that, we end this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. You can download the codes on your screens for the respective downloads. Also, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Gaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.